So far, we've hit some high-level ideas, right? We've got intermittent versus continuous, left hand versus right hand, cassette, touchscreen printer. What do those things mean? What does calibration mean? But now I think it's time that we talk about the whole theory behind TTO printing. All right, the core concept here is thermal transfer printing. So what does that mean? We're gonna use heat to transfer ink to something in a print form. So we got heat, we've got ink, and then we've got something we got to print onto. So that process is driven by the following key elements. First, let's talk about the printhead. Now, the printhead contains hundreds, thousands of tiny little elements called pixels. The pixels are individually heated to melt that ink. Now the ribbon is our ink. Simple enough. It's not that simple though. There's actually 3 layers there on the ribbon. You've got the backing layer, you've got a transferring layer, and you've got the ink. The backing layer provides structural integrity so this thing doesn't rip or break apart. The release layer allows the ink to actually release, but not stick to, this layer won't stick to your substrate. And then the ink is obviously an ink. It's either a wax resin, or full resin. It could be different colors as well. Black is the most common, but we have silver, we have white, I've seen yellow. If you can think about it, we can actually get it for you. Now, the last word I want to identify that we've kind of used throughout this whole thing is the substrate. Substrate is really your packaging. So that whether that's film, pouches, bags, whatever, most commonly it's film. It's in roll stock, and then it goes through your whole line, then it gets formed later on, filled and sealed and sent out. The real key is just energy and ink. Let me stop there. Always remember energy and ink. If you're having trouble trying to get an image on whatever packaging, you have to ask yourself, do I have enough energy? And that would be in settings we'll talk about later, but max out whatever heat you can apply. Second thing is, do I have the right ink? This is one that gets super commonly overlooked. You guys are sitting there working this, you've been running production for months, for years, no problems. This fancy marketing guy is sitting upstairs. He decides he wants to change what your film looks like or your substrate. Makes it nice, beautiful. It looks awesome. Everybody's so happy. Yeah, we just bought millions of dollars worth of this stuff. And then they give it to you guys to run on your lines, and guess what? You can't get a print to stick to it. Nothing changed but the substrate. Substrate and ink need to be matched. There are times where this causes a huge problem. Everybody's pointing fingers at everybody. Just keep an eye, or just remember that. Let's talk about heat transfer. So we send electricity to these pixels. To increase the amount of energy there, the heat rises anywhere from 70 Celsius to 300 Celsius. This is finely controlled. We can control each little pixel. As that ribbon comes in contact with the heated elements, the ink melts at the designated spots where we said these pixels are going to be hot at this point, and it breaks away from the release layer, right? So our ink breaks away from the release layer. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. That melted ink will adhere to your substrate. Your substrate will get pulled away, and it cools as it goes while the ribbon gets wound up for the very next element to get printed. This results in a very high quality, durable print. And now that we're talking about quality, let's go into what can affect print quality. Again, remember, let's go back. What is it? It's energy and it's ink. Let's kind of break it down. Okay, so first is if we have a problem supplying energy, that means our printhead is probably faulty, or some component along that line of energy from our power supply to our printer PCB to the printhead cable all the way down to the printhead is faulty. Okay, so if we have an issue, let's swap our printhead. That's one thing we can do. The next thing is we need to figure out how much pressure did we apply when we actually tried to transfer that image. Pressure is a thing. Now these are all electric printers. So before, if you had one of the older styles, before you were able to just crank up that air pressure on it, because a solenoid valve was just sending a shot of air every single time you needed to print. We don't do that anymore. Now we're using a motor to control the head, and when it hits, you could increase that, right, to see if that helps you. Another thing, key thing that always gets overlooked, whether you're printing on continuous or intermittent, there is some type of backing. So you have your print head, you've got, so I'm gonna use my fingers here. You got your print head, underneath that is your ribbon. Underneath that ribbon is your substrate, but under the substrate is either a flat piece of rubber for intermittent printing or a rubber roller. And that print head smashes all the way down onto that rubber. If that hasn't been changed in a very long time, it might be there's little peaks and valleys created on that roller or pad that's causing it not to transfer. So that's something to look out for. But again, we will go through all of that later on. These are kind of just, let's bang out these simple things first, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So we can always go back to this mindset, energy and ink.